An ordinary person's exploration of the unknown, where is the limit of humanity? Does the world of martial arts exist? What kind of scenery is the world of cultivation? Let's see the protagonist unravel the mysteries one by one. Chapter 0. Wedge. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Wentian was born in a small rural area of Guizhou. His parents went out to make a living since childhood. As the first group of left-behind children, it was not easy to successfully pursue a full-day undergraduate degree. However, due to a lack of parental education and supervision since childhood, Li Wentian has undoubtedly become a college student who is seen by others as having achieved nothing. In his 30s, he has no car, no house, and no wife. Just like this, a person is also one of many internet-addicted teenagers. No, now he should be a middle-aged internet addict. On the evening when Li Wentian resigned from his nth job after graduating from college, he entered his startup password normally and logged into the League of Legends account with a deduction. The account showed that level 7111 was already ranked in the top 20 on the Chinese server. The number 1 watermelon in the Chinese server is already at level 7355. Do these people not need to work? Li Wentian cursed inwardly. Starting with a normal single and double row car, Li Wentian has also recently fallen in love with playing auxiliary games. In order to save time, Li Wentian chose to fill the gap and then held a soul lock as the warden. He won the first one, won the second one again, and won the third one. 5 consecutive pages of green records have transformed the original silver 3 rank into gold 3. Full of a sense of achievement, I usually don't like scoring, you see, it's like drinking water. Li Wentian, as usual, shared his results with his friend, Mao Xian, and then started another match. This led him to choose the recently popular mouse assistant, which is to complete the middle of the game and then go down the road and play the opposite side in the wilderness. Due to the Chinese New Year holiday, there are very few people staying up all night in the internet cafe, and the mouse is clicking, gradually becoming chubby. Li Wentian slowly opened his eyes and looked at the white ceiling. He turned his head and saw the curve on the heartbeat monitor before regaining his senses. Wasn't I browsing the internet in an internet cafe? How did you get to the hospital? Nurse. Nurse. Li Wentian called twice. I saw a white figure pushing the door in. Hello, you're awake. Don't move, lie down. The nurse quickly spoke and helped Li Wentian onto the pillow, then pressed the call button on the bedside, thinking it was time to call a doctor. Hello nurse, what's wrong with me? How did you get to the hospital? The nurse said impatiently, you don't know yet, do you? You almost died suddenly in an internet cafe. Fortunately, the owner of the cafe brought it in time, otherwise you should be drinking mengpa soup now. Oh, this is it. Li Wentian tried hard to recall, as if he had been online for 2 consecutive days and 3 nights at the San Siro Internet Cafe, and eventually ranked 3rd in gold, but he didn't remember it afterwards. Oh, that nurse. Li Wentian looked at the nurse cleaning up the ward and called out, what's up again? The nurse seems to dislike middle-aged internet addicts like Li Wentian. So, how much did I spend in the hospital? I have no money on my waist. Li Wentian asked awkwardly. Just resigned from work, Li Wentian used the remaining 200 yuan to pay for the internet. The nurse turned to Li Wentian and said, the internet cafe owner has advanced 5,000 yuan. You can handle the rest yourself. Li Wentian then carefully examined the nurse and estimated her height to be around 170, with a melon seed face, fair skin, a pair of agile big eyes, and sexy lips. Such a beautiful nurse, I really want to stay here for a few more days, Li Wentian thought to himself. What? Li Wentian just realized now. How many days have I been in the hospital? How much does it cost in total? The nurse said angrily, it's probably tens of thousands. This is the ICU, and you stayed there for 5 days before waking up. The hospitalization fee is 3,000 yuan per day, the nursing fee is 500 yuan per day, and the surgery fee is 20,000 yuan. You need to go to the first floor to complete the discharge procedures before you know more. It's over, where can I get this money? The two elderly people are also taking care of themselves in their hometown due to illness, and they just quit their jobs without insurance. What should they do? You can't escape being single like going to a bathhouse. The key is, you can't escape being single, Li Wentian muttered to himself. Chapter 1. Strange Professor. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Squeezing, the door of the ward was pushed open again. Meow meow, what's the situation? An old man with gray hair walked in and asked. Just woke up, it seems like there's no big problem. Then you go out. I will personally feel the pulse for this patient. The old man seemed to be very familiar with this nurse, so he said directly. Okay. The nurse named Meow Meow responded and turned around to close the door of the ward. The old man sat by the bed, reached out and placed his hand on Li Wentian's right hand, as if listening carefully to something. After a minute or two, he asked, How do young people feel? Are you okay? I don't feel much, doctor. What is my situation? Li Wentian asked weakly. There's not much going on either, it's just that due to staying up late for a long time and experiencing sudden cardiac arrest, I ended up presenting the Northwest when I was late. But, I don't have the money. That's your business, the old man shook his head and said. Doctor, can I handle discharge now? There's really no other way, this hospital can't stay any longer. Li Wentian said with a hint of excitement. That's not possible. Now your physical signs need to be summarized to the dean before we can process the discharge procedures for you, the old man said, pressing his hand against the frame of the glasses. But what if I don't have the money to pay for the medical expenses? Can the doctor think of a way for me? Li Wentian grabbed the doctor's hand as if he had grabbed the last straw to save his life. What's the solution? There's no way. Unless the old man said something vaguely at this moment, Li Wentian could hear very clearly and asked, unless for what? The old man shook his head and said, forget it, 32 years old is still too old. It's not big, it's not big. I grew up in the countryside and can endure hardship. If you have any requirements, just tell me directly, Li Wentian quickly answered. The old man hesitated for a long time and said, it's not impossible for me to cover the cost for you this time, but you have to agree to 2 conditions and I will help. No problem, let alone 2 conditions. I agree to all 3 and 10 conditions. Li Wentian urgently said okay, then rest assured. I'll go and handle the discharge procedures for you. I'll pick you up early tomorrow and let you know my conditions. As the old man closed the door and left, only Li Wentian was left in the ward staring blankly at the ceiling. Thinking about himself, it was quite sad that at the age of 32, he couldn't even afford tens of thousands of medical expenses. It's impossible to tell the 2 elders about this kind of thing. For the 2 elders, Li Wentian always brings good news but not bad news. I secretly made up my mind that after being discharged from the hospital this time, I will definitely look up to money. In this era, money is the hard truth. I just don't know what the old man wants, isn't it that he wants me to take care of him? The old man looks like he's in his 70s, and his bones should be quite strong. He shouldn't be in a hurry to find someone to take care of him. As for him, when the boat reaches the bridge, it will naturally straighten out, Li Wentian thought to himself. Later on, the nurse brought in a takeout and changed into sportswear, probably due to a shift change. A graceful figure paired with beautiful cheeks adds a touch of fairy charm. Li Wentian was momentarily stunned. What are you looking at, a fool? The nurse said something in anger. You look so beautiful, isn't it just for people to see you? Li Wentian replied teasingly, his anger rising. Humph, here, someone ordered takeout for you, stewed chicken rice, he said, tossing the takeout on the bedside table and turning his head to open the door. Surprisingly, someone would order takeout for me. Did this nurse fall in love with me at first sight? Li Wentian touched his face and muttered to himself. Glancing at the takeout, my stomach started to growl unconsciously, probably because I had been unconscious for a few days and had to rely on salt water to adjust it, so my stomach was already empty. Sweep out all the takeout items and then throw the boxes into the trash can. After Li Wentian had eaten his fill, he also gained strength. He stood up and pushed the door into the bathroom, looking at his face that had lost a circle and his oily hair in the mirror. Li Wentian used the shampoo on the dressing table and washed his hair, instantly feeling refreshed and refined. The current ICU configuration is quite good, like a hotel, with shampoo and hair dryer. Dry your hair and continue lying in bed. Around 10 p.m., a nurse pushed open the door of the ward, holding a stack of A4 paper and a neutral pen in her hand. Li Wentian, right? The nurse asked. Yes. Li Wentian looked at the nurse and felt a bit disappointed. Obviously, the nurse who came this time was not the figure he had imagined. Come and sign, the nurse said in an official tone. Okay. Li Wentian flipped through the A4 paper and replied, due to the lack of accompanying family members, the admission procedures, surgical agreement contract, nursing fee list, and the last one is the discharge summary. The final total cost is 45,006 yuan, of which 5,000 yuan has been paid and 40.06 yuan is owed. Just sign it. Professor Qian Yang advanced the payment to you. Oh, that old man's surname is Yang. Li Wentian muttered to himself in an authentic way. Beauty. What kind of person is Professor Yang? Can you help reveal it? Li Wentian asked the nurse. You said Professor Yang. He is a senior professor rehired from our Jinyang People's Hospital. He used to be a retired academician of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. However, Professor Yang has a bit of a strange temper, and he has no children under his knee. He only has one granddaughter, and the grandfather and grandson depend on each other, so he doesn't know much about the rest. The nurse spoke eloquently. Oh, thank you. After gaining a general understanding of the old man's background, Li Wentian breathed a sigh of relief in his mind. I slept soundly on the pillow. Chapter 2. The Old Man's Two Conditions. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. De Co Lois Ara Trong Quatrin Lay Text. Chapter 3. Signing a Sale Contract. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Li Wentian flipped the agreement to the last page, signed it with his name, and then pressed his thumbprint. He also saw that the position of Party B at the end was prominently marked with the Chinese Academy of Sciences, accompanied by a round stamp, which made him feel much more at ease. I don't seem to have been deceived or sold myself, and besides, everyone is trustworthy. At least I can be considered a person with higher education, he joked to himself once it's signed. Just give it to me, Mr. Yang said as he put away the agreement. Since you have signed the agreement, you will have to accept my arrangements and scheduling for everything else. Before that, I will introduce to you what we need to do. After 2 hours of explanation by Mr. Yang, Li Wentian also understood the basic situation. Yang Lao is the main person in charge of the life science project authorized by the state for research. It is estimated that he is the only one conducting the research. Before Li Wentian, there were a total of 998 experimental subjects, of which 997 had already hiccup. The 998th one is still alive, which is why Yang Lao said he has achieved 99.9% success. This also made Li Wentian feel a chill in his heart. This project mainly focuses on testing drugs. A type of medicine called anti-aging drugs. It is said that this medicine is an ancient prescription from the mausoleum of the first Qin emperor. The prescription that Emperor Qin Shi Huang sent Su Fu to cross the ocean to seek immortality at Mount Buzhou. Although it is unknown whether the prescription at that time was effective, after being discovered by the archaeological team, the Zongnanhai side attached great importance to it, because once this prescription appeared, it would inevitably cause panic and social unrest. Imagine, if everyone could live forever and humans were constantly reproducing, could the Earth's resources be sufficient, and could even accommodate humans that have proliferated excessively? This prescription has been hidden by the country since its discovery, and ordinary people have no understanding of this level. Mr. Yang also developed this research project because of his research in life sciences and the country's desire to apply this prescription to military applications. After understanding these things, Li Wentian fell into contemplation. Young man, in the future, I will call you 39s, just like the code name in the military. Don't be afraid, I have upgraded this anti-aging medicine to version 9.99, ensuring that you won't have any worries about your life. 99.8 is still living well, and now they are in the island country. When Mr. Yang talked about the island country, he stopped talking, obviously touching on some secrets. Li Wentian put on a rude expression and said, I've signed all the documents. What's so scary about me? At least my life is worth 5 million. Okay, said Yang excitedly, the 39s are great. You have the determination to give up on life, which can completely compensate for your age deficiency. What should I do? Li Wentian asked again. Don't worry, I'll give you a hormone injection first to stimulate the production of new tissue stem cells after your resurrection. Only when your proportion of new stem cells exceeds that of aging cells can we proceed to the next stage of the experiment, explained Yang. The first snow of 2002 came later than usual. A classic bell rang. It turned out to be Yang Lao's phone. After Yang Lao answered the phone, Li Wentian clearly heard the cursed voice from the other side, that broken Honda car is your car, isn't it? Are you really good at parking? Did you buy your driver's license in RMB? Get out of here quickly. Okay. Yang Laoyan said 3 good things and then hung up. 39s, did you park the car? Yang Lao asked. Sorry, I am Master Huang with a wallet driver's license. Li Wentian said awkwardly. Then you can go down and solve it yourself. Once it's resolved, I'll give you hormone injections. Yang Lao shook the pot and said. Chapter 4. The Daughter of Reason Without Mercy. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Li Wentian couldn't help but recall the car he had parked in the elevator downstairs, as if it was close to a Porsche. It's broken, it shouldn't have hit that Porsche. Li Wentian felt as if 10,000 horses were running through the grass. Before entering the garage after leaving the elevator, Li Wentian heard a burst of angry voices. Who is that? Can you park? Damn it, the driver's license was taught by a Chinese teacher. Even if it was taught by a math teacher, it wouldn't stop like this. Li Wentian followed the sound and saw a woman with a mushroom head, dressed in professional attire and black leather shoes, cursing at the car. As her back was facing Li Wentian, he carefully examined it. This woman is over 1.7 meters tall, and it is unclear if she is wearing professional attire. The curves under her skirt are particularly prominent. Li Wentian was looking around eagerly when the woman suddenly turned around, thinking she wanted to see if the car owner had come downstairs. With this turn, the woman's facial features and moderately sized chest once again caught Li Wentian's eye. A tall and straight-nosed bridge, big and agile eyes like water, bright red lips, and delicate skin like a baby, clearly using high-end cosmetics. That's the car you parked, right? In the moment when Li Wentian was stunned, the woman spoke up first. Well, it's yes. Li Wentian was shocked by this woman's appearance, so he stuttered a bit when speaking. This large parking space is for you to park, and you are still pressing the line. How did you get your driver's license? You see, I scratched my car door. How do you think this can be resolved? The woman's continuous questioning made Li Wentian a bit confused for a moment and he didn't know how to answer. He hesitated for a while and couldn't speak. It's not surprising that Li Wentian has shown such behavior. He just came out of the hospital and still worked hard to offset the discharge fee. What can he do now? Why am I so unlucky? After just passing through the mountains of knives, why is there a sea of fire in front of me? Li Wentian almost wanted to bump into the wall of the garage and die. Thinking about the two elderly people at home, he put this idea down. "Alright, you transfer me 50,000 yuan, I'll go fix it myself," the woman said. She seems to have calmed down pretty much, after all, she's had enough to curse. "No money," Li Wentian awkwardly replied. "No money, right? Do you have your ID card with you?" The woman asked with it on. Li Wentian fumbled for his pants and bag, and took out his ID card. Due to being a middle-aged internet addict, Li Wentian usually carries his ID card with him. The woman took Li Wentian's ID card and put it in her handbag. "What are you doing?" Li Wentian asked. The woman said angrily, "You don't have money, so I can only rely on your ID card. Come and pick it up when you have money. Besides, I have an important meeting. Can you afford to delay my time? Then you have to leave a contact information." "How can I contact you then?" Li Wentian asked. "Well," the woman casually handed out a business card. "Then I quickly got into the car, started the engine, and left the parking lot with a shudder." Li Wentian looked at the business card in his hand, which read that Huaxia Yangshe Group, Ouyang Lan, actually holds the position of executive director. Li Wentian shook his head and thought to himself, "Anyway, I don't have to bear too much debt. I'll sell my life to that old man and ask him to give me this money." Li Wentian turned around and pressed the elevator to go upstairs. "Have you dealt with it?" When Mr. Yang opened the door, he asked. "Take care of yourself. She asked me to give 50,000 yuan, but I didn't have any money. She left my ID card with her." Li Wentian said angrily. "You need to handle this matter for me, I sold my life to you." Yang shook his head and said, "This is impossible. Just settle that matter with your hospital. I used my precious granddaughter's dowry money, and all my own money was spent on anti-aging drugs." Squeak. At this moment, the door opened. Chapter 5. Preliminary Trial of Anti-Aging Drugs. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A familiar figure opened the door and entered. Li Wentian looked carefully and realized it was the nurse who was taking care of her in the hospital, the figure she had been longing to see. Her black and smooth hair, coupled with her beautiful face, big eyes, and tall figure, perfectly matched Li Wentian's aesthetic. "Grandpa, I'm off work now," and the woman used to call Yang Lao as if she hadn't seen Li Wentian. Why haven't you left yet?" A woman's surprised way. Come here, my good granddaughter. Let me introduce him to you. His name is 39s, and you have met him before in the hospital." "Humph. Are you deceiving others into using it as an experimental sample for you again? You bad old man is very bad," the woman curses profusely. "Oh, by the way, where did you get the money to advance payment for him? You won't touch my little vault again, will you?" No. The old man is a little guilty. Immediately, the old man changed the topic and said, "Here, 39s, let me introduce you to my beloved granddaughter, Yang Miao Miao. What's her profession?" "You know, nurse, 25 years old, single." "Why are you introducing so carefully? Are you afraid that no one wants me?" Yang Miao Miao moaned coquettishly. No, you bring 39s down, I'll pack up and get off my horse, okay?" Yang Miao Miao appeared a bit impatient and down to earth. "Come this way." Yang Miao Miao led the way and said. "Isn't that Mr. Yang's bedroom?" Li Wentian suddenly felt puzzled. I saw Yang Miao Miao reach out and press down on the white wall, which unexpectedly split into two and opened to both sides like an elevator door. There are only 2 buttons to enter the elevator, and there is no sign. Li Wentian also followed into the elevator. As the elevator door closed, apart from the sound of the elevator descending, the atmosphere inside was particularly quiet and awkward. Faced with his crush on the girl, Li Wentian also appeared clumsy at this moment, not knowing what topics to use to warm up the stage, which is also the main reason why Li Wentian has been single for more than 30 years. The elevator continued to descend for about 10 minutes, and Li Wentian estimated that it was more than 500 meters underground because Yang's house was on the second floor, and the elevator descended at a constant speed. The elevator door opened, and what caught the eye was a laboratory with various instruments, bottles, jars, test tubes, beakers, and so on. Yang Miao Miao led Li Wentian into a lounge, sat down, and made him a cup of coffee. Then he asked, "Are you sure you want to accept the old man's experiment? It's a near death." "Well, look, there are already hundreds of people dying in that training ground outside." Li Wentian looked in the direction of Yang Miao Miao's fingers, and outside the window was an indoor training ground the size of a football field. There should be various equipment inside, including an 800-meter runway and a comprehensive training ground for the military. "And the first shot will be very painful, which most people cannot bear," Yang Miao Miao advised. In front of the girl he admires, Li Wentian can't resist it either. "It's okay, I can hold on. Our rural children can't do anything else except endure hardship," Li Wentian said arrogantly. As they were talking, Yang Lao had already come over with something. "Come on, towel in your mouth. Roll up your sleeves." Mr. Yang took out a shot of reagent and professionally emptied the air inside the syringe, saying. Yang Miao Miao couldn't bear to turn her head. Li Wentian was holding a towel in his mouth and pulling up the sleeve of his right hand with his left hand. Then came the sound of woo. Woo. Woo, from the lounge. Mr. Yang took a shot, skillfully injected the reagent, and then pulled it out again. Li Wentian couldn't help but feel a little pain when he received this injection. That's unbearable pain. It is very obvious that the reagent enters the bloodstream from the needle and spreads throughout the body. At first, it hurts in the right hand, then in the internal organs, then in the limbs, and finally rushes into the brain. When he rushed into his brain, Li Wentian finally couldn't bear it and fainted. Chapter 6. Emergence of Retirement Intention. You are listening at novelfull.audio. A refreshing fragrance seeped into Li Wentian's nose, and he woke up leisurely. However, despite his efforts to open his eyes, he couldn't do it. The pain all over the body did not ease due to waking up. At this moment, only the brain can be used, and even fingers cannot move anywhere else. Suddenly, a soft hand burst into his palm, and a murmur reached Li Wentian's ear. The owner of the voice should be Yang Miao Miao, and I should be in Yang Miao Miao's boudoir, Li Wentian thought to himself. Li Wentian tried his best to listen to his gentle voice. 3 nines, I hope you wake up early. It's all my fault for not being able to persuade you and let you experience the pain that has penetrated deep into your bones. From 0102 to 90.7, they all sacrificed themselves under the power of this elixir of immortality. Later on, I pray to the Buddha every day, hoping that he can transcend their souls and forgive the sins created by the old man, Yang Miao Miao whispered. After a while, Yang Miao Miao continued to mutter to herself, however, 3 nines, you must persevere. As long as you can wake up, the old man's current research progress can still ensure your life's safety, and it can also bring you some unexpected changes. These changes are still very beneficial to you. Li Wentian was enduring the pain all over his body while trying to regain the movement of his limbs. But he thought to himself, what kind of medicine is this? If I had known it would be so painful, I wouldn't have gone into this old man's pit. When I wake up, I will find a way to stay away and completely stay away from this old man who eats people and doesn't vomit bones. After a while, a rustling sound came, and then Li Wentian felt a cool breeze. Then a warm object slid over my chest, followed by my pussy, my lower abdomen, and even onto my second child, carefully wiping his head and roots. As a 32-year-old widowed man, Li Wentian couldn't withstand such stimulation, and his second son immediately stood at attention. Pussy. There's a reaction now, but it's quite significant. The girl muttered to herself in an authentic way. Li Wentian finally woke up under such stimulation, deliberately coughing to cover up his embarrassment. Ah! You're awake. The girl turned her head in surprise and said. Ah. Li Wentian's intentional cough caused pain throughout his body. Are you okay? Let me help you sit up, and then Yang Miao Miao rested her left hand on Li Wentian's head, while her right hand reached behind Li Wentian and stood the pillow upright. It's okay, Li Wentian said awkwardly. However, when he sat up, the second still held his head high. Li Wentian quickly pulled over the rolled-up bedding and blushed to the base of his neck. Cluck. Yang Miao Miao covered her mouth and smiled. You're a big man, why are you still like a big girl? What's so embarrassing? I just saw that you've been unconscious for a week and you're sweating profusely. I just wanted to wipe you off. Okay, thank you. What? I was unconscious for a week. 7 whole days. Li Wentian was surprised and said. Yeah. You should be very hungry, right? I'll go get you something to eat. As Yang Miao Miao spoke, she turned around and left. Li Wentian touched his stomach, which had been growling all along. He decided to put on his clothes first to avoid any embarrassment, and then endured the excruciating pain and struggled to put on his clothes and pants. Li Wentian thought to himself that when Yang Miao Miao brought the rice to eat, he would have to find a way to escape this place if he had the strength. Otherwise, if he gave me another shot, I probably wouldn't be able to bear it. Chapter 7. The Weak Retreat and Scatter. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Then Li Wentian looked around Yang Miao Miao's boudoir, and the pink walls and beautiful graffiti highlighted the owner's youthful heart. The green plants on the dressing table were also full of greenery. A pure and lovely selfie was placed on the bedside table, and the whole room was simple, clean, and tidy. With a creak, the door opened and a fragrant aroma rushed towards him. Coupled with Li Wentian's nagging stomach, he secretly swallowed a few mouthfuls of saliva. Come, it's time for dinner. Yang Miao Miao came in with 3 dishes and 1 soup and said. Li Wentian wolfed down these 3 dishes and 1 soup. Yang Miao Miao looked expectantly at Li Wentian, meaning to ask him how he tasted. Well, I'm full. Li Wentian thought she was going to ask him if he had enough to eat, and quickly replied, showing steel straight man to the fullest. My grandfather went to work, and before he left, he asked me to remind you that this anti-aging medicine has a total of 9 stages. Your first stage has just begun, and I injected you with the anti-aging medicine. The effect should be almost stimulated in the days when you are unconscious. The next step is to stimulate your bone marrow stem cells to divide and produce more stem cells through pharmacological effects. When you have half of the new stem cells and half of the aging cells, you must undergo the second stage of the experiment. It should take about a month between now. If you have anything to do, you can go and handle it first. You must come back after a month to undergo the second phase of the experiment. Otherwise, the side effects may be unimaginable. Li Wentian listened carefully to Yang Miao Miao's chatter, as he was all focused on how to escape this place. What? I can go now, right? Oh, I remember. The house I rented is about to expire, and I need to go back and take a look. Otherwise, the landlady Zhao Tai will have to throw my luggage on the street, Li Wentian interrupted. Okay, wait for me a moment. After Yang Miao Miao finished speaking, she turned around and searched in the wardrobe. In no time, she held a dozen red 100 yuan bills in her hand and handed them to Li Wentian, about 5,000 yuan. I know you run out of money. I heard you say you have to pay rent again. You should take it as an emergency first. Li Wentian hesitated for a while. This was the first time in his life that he had accepted a girl's money. He took the money from her hand and weakly said, "This is what I borrowed from you. I will definitely repay it in the future." In fact, Li Wentian thought, this is my salary tortured by you too. I will go back to my hometown when I get back to pack up my luggage. It seems that a metropolis like Jinyang cannot survive. Now the country is vigorously developing new countryside, and I will not starve to death even if I go back to my hometown. It's okay, can you use it? My grandfather invited you to participate in this project, and as an ordinary person, you are a bit reluctant. Let's give you some compensation and also accumulate some virtue for the old man. If it's not enough, you can call or message me. I still have some savings, but there's only so much cash left. Well, that's good, then I'll go back first. Li Wentian bid farewell to Yang Miao Miao and took a taxi back to the place where he rented his house. This was a coal mining village, one of the several shantytowns in Jinyang City. The landlord was an ant, surnamed Zhao, a standard local snake, and a member of the four mysterious organizations in Jinyang: dancing aunties, delivery guys, white-collar workers selling houses, and park masters. I usually catch the earliest bus early in the morning to go out and play mahjong, come back in the afternoon to collect rent, and go out to do square dancing in the evening. For Aunt Zhao, Li Wentian has never caught a cold, just like the landlady in the movie Kung Fu. She has a very bad mouth, and even the most unpleasant thing is that she can come with her mouth open. Moreover, for a small single room with a rent of 500 yuan, she calculates a monthly utility bill of nearly 200 yuan. In private, Li Wentian calls the landlady Zhao Tai. Li Wentian lay in his doghouse, planning what to do next. Chapter 8. Enlightenment, from Zhao Tai. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Wentian's penis shrank into his own dog's nest. Looking back on his experiences during this period, it was simply too messy. Where should I go? The key is that my ID card was also confiscated by that woman. According to Li Wentian's usual urination habits, he is not allowed to go to the internet cafe for 3 days and 3 nights to vent his unhappiness. But now my ID card has been confiscated by someone else, coupled with this strange experience. I originally planned to have a great time online at the internet cafe, then go find a resentful boss and fire him. But now that his ID card has been confiscated, he needs money to redeem it. In addition, considering the selling contract from Mr. Yang and the feeling of being tormented by that anti-aging medicine, this further strengthens Li Wentian's desire to escape from this place. Bang, bang, bang. A rapid knocking on the door rang out. No need to think, it must be Zhao Tai. Here we go. Although Li Wentian was extremely reluctant to see Zhao Tai, he still had to get up and open the door. Who would call her a landlady? Hey, you little bunny, it's been so long since you opened the door. Aren't you hiding to watch porn again? The young man's masturbation is so hurtful. Zhao Tai jokingly said no nothing. Li Wentian replied awkwardly. Regardless of whether you have it or not, pay the rent for this month as soon as possible, and there is 198 yuan in water and electricity bills, totaling 698 yuan. I saw Zhao Tai holding her small notebook and writing while talking. What? The water and electricity bill is 198, but I haven't been at home for over a week. Li replied angrily when asked about the weather. Shoo. Are you afraid your child doesn't have money? Did you fire the boss again? Zhao Tai finished speaking and thought to himself, every time this kid gets fired, he has to pay 2 months' rent arrears. I can't compromise on anything I say this time. If I can't, I'll switch tenants. A person in their 30s, who is lazy all day, addicted to the internet, and changes jobs countless times a year, is your talent buried, or are all bosses not worthy of you working for them? A person like you, how could there be a woman following you? You are destined to end your life alone you. It's no use talking too much to you. I'm not someone like you. In one sentence, if you have money, hurry up and pay the rent. If you don't have money, roll up your bedding and leave tonight so that I can vacate the house and rent it out again. Finally, Zhao Tai spoke in a professional tone. Zhao Tai's firecracker-style bombing left Li Wentian speechless. If you don't rent, then don't rent. Who cares? I rented you a shabby single room, which has increased from 200 yuan to 500 yuan now, and with the additional water and electricity bills, why did you treat me as a big injustice to you? Li Wen has been renting her house for so many years and has never owed her a penny in rent. Her words are harsh and sarcastic. You don't have to rush me, I have to leave myself. Li Wentian counterattacked. In fact, Li Wentian is also aware that in the materialistic metropolis of Jinyang, prices change year by year, and it is difficult to find a small single room that can be rented for 500 yuan. The little bunny is still tough today, isn't he? Move it, hurry up and move it for me. Also, the 198 yuan water and electricity bill was from last month, and I have to pay it now, otherwise I won't let you move out. Here you are. Li Wentian took 200 yuan bills from his pocket and threw them to Zhao Tai, saying arrogantly, don't change the 2 yuan bills. It's a tribute to your elderly family. Obviously, this money is the money that Yang Miao Miao gave him before. Next, Li Wentian bought a ticket to Zitong, go home. Zitong is a remote county town in Guizhou province, which has also been connected to high-speed rail under the National Western Plan in the past decade. The whole journey takes 4 hours to reach Zitong County. Looking at the inverted view outside the car window, Li Wentian fell into contemplation. He made up his mind to say goodbye to the city when he returned to his hometown this time. Go home and pay homage to your parents. After all, it's not easy for them to bring themselves up and help them to go to college. Now my father has a brain problem and my mother has diabetes. I don't know how many years I can live, Li Wentian thought to himself. Chapter 9. Returning Home. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. After the train stopped, Li Wentian looked at this familiar and unfamiliar county town, and many feelings surged in his heart. This city used to study in high school and stayed here for 3 or 4 years. At that time, this remote small county town could be visited twice a morning. Now, driven by the National Western Plan, not only has high-speed rail been connected, but a new urban area has also been developed. A broad avenue, towering buildings, a constant stream of vehicles and crowds. Hey, it's been more than 10 years since I went to university and haven't returned to Zitong County. Has the small Zitong County also developed to its current level? Li Wentian sighed. After another hour of van ride, Li Wentian finally returned to his hometown. As soon as he arrived home, the sound of barking dogs seemed to welcome him back, and the sound of crowing chickens seemed to be like the honor guard lining up to play music for him. Li asked Tianchang for a sigh of relief and said, my hometown is the harbor of happiness. The outside world is too unfriendly for me. The sound of roosters crowing and dogs barking alarmed the owner of the old house. Squeak. The shaky door opened, but no one came out for half a day. Li Wentian walked over quickly. An elderly figure collided with his vision, holding a stick in his hand, with gray hair and a hunched body. Just as he was about to leave, he was grabbed by Li Wentian. Dad, if it's inconvenient for you, just sit down. Li Wentian almost burst into tears as he looked at his old father, choking up as he spoke. When I hear a dog barking, I want to get up and see who it is. There aren't many people passing by here in the wilderness for a year. The old man explained. After Li Wentian helped his old father sit on the stool and asked, where's my mother? I've gone to work in the field. Have you eaten yet? There's still rice in the pot and vegetables in the cupboard, the old man said with concern. Okay. After Li Wentian responded, he went to empty the cupboard and rice cooker. It turned out that what the old man meant was a bowl of old pumpkin soup and a plate of vegetable stir-fried leaves. Do they usually eat this? This can't even lift any oil droplets, and seeing these Li Wentian feels guilty. It's all my fault for not being successful and causing the 2 elders to suffer. Thinking to himself, Li Wentian didn't have any free time in his hands because he was a bit hungry after half a day of fatigue in the boat and car. Plus, this dish was also grown by the 2 elders themselves, and the taste was indeed good. Li Wentian, who was used to eating outside, suddenly felt uncomfortable, but he didn't dare to show it in front of the old man. He could only eat in large bites and say, "Where did my mom go to work? I'll go see if I need any help after finishing." "Well, on the eastern hill, cut some grass to feed the livestock." The old man carefully watched Li Wentian's every move, as if he was looking at a stranger, looking at Li Wentian from head to toe, as if he wanted to see his son's changes over the years, and said, "Okay. I'll go as soon as I finish eating." Li Wentian felt a bit embarrassed when the old man looked at him. In fact, in the past, Li Wentian's relationship with his father had always been quite rigid, because in the past, his father would belittle himself for not being successful and offer to read books for 10 or 20 years in vain. Without looking for a partner, he often scolds Li Wentian with the words, "Unfilial has 3 consequences, having no offspring is great." Li Wentian has never refuted it, even once. "Because I really didn't make any progress, didn't show filial piety to the 2 elders, and didn't seriously pursue a romantic relationship." However, after the old man had a cerebral infarction 3 years ago, his temperament also changed a lot. It is unclear whether he was disappointed or because he was able to see through after his serious illness. People won't reveal Li Wentian's secrets in front of him anymore, and his words have become less frequent. "I have finished eating, then I'll go find my mom," Li Wentian said and walked towards the door. "There is a basket at the entrance of the pigsty, take it with you," the old man's voice comes from behind. "Good," Li Wentian replied loudly,